Welcome, Ananda here. Peaceful Living in Chaotic Times. This is part 3 of the series. We're reading from the dictionary that can save your life. We're on page 19. Department of Human Resources. Human trafficking. Trafficking of monsters legally recognized as animals. Indictment. Written accusations and criminal charges brought against a party. Litigation. The act or process of litigating or carrying on a suit in a court of law or equity, a judicial contest. Any dispute or discussion dependent upon evidence for decision. That's from Wordnik. Arbitration. An arbitration is like a small-scale trial. This can take place before the trial for a lawsuit with the hopes that a resolution will be reached before trial and therefore negate the need for a full-scale trial. It involves a third party called the arbiter or an arbitrator to oversee the dispute between two parties. Arbiters, or those who conduct the arbitration, are not judges. They need to have their decision approved by the court. The arbiter is an official approved to make the final decision in the dispute. That's from upcounsel.com. Mediation, a technique for resolution of disputes in which a mediator assists disputing parties in voluntarily reaching mutually agreeable settlement of issues within the laws, regulations, and the agency's generally applicable program, policies, and procedures, but in which the mediator has no authoritative decision-making power. A. Method, with a neutral person helping the parties find a solution to their dispute. Since mediation is less rigid than both litigation and arbitration, it allows for creative techniques that would not be acceptable in other settings. And this is from law.cornell.edu. Facts worth knowing. Fact. The Supreme Court of the United States acknowledges that all rules, codes, statutes, and ordinances are not law. Fact. They are corporate bylaws. Fact. The Supreme Court of the United States says that all bylaws are colorable. And here's the definition for colorable. Without fact. Voluntary. Must be obeyed by consent, which leads us to the word must. Must has two meanings. One, it is an obligation, or two, it literally means maybe or possibly. So when you read must, it does not mean what you may have thought it means. In other words, if they say must, you still have a choice. Here's an example of how the word must does not apply. There is no such thing as criminal law and civil law. There is only commercial law. We know that there are other laws such as common law and God's law, but for this example, we'll be looking at commercial law as a whole. Under the umbrella of that which is called commercial law, the commercial law jurisdiction holds two parts. The two parts under it are called criminal and civil. Civil pertains to persons and wrongdoing. Criminal pertains to crimes where a person has been injured, or it could pertain to corporations or federal government crimes, and so on. Notice the words persons. It is persons who fall under the rules of civil law. It is persons who fall under the rules of criminal law. Furthermore, only persons can be injured, because injury pertains to the world of legalese. A man can only be harmed or damaged. A man cannot be injured. A person can be injured. Please be careful. There are so many tricks and traps as we learn to develop our standing that I recommend to look up each word that you use in your letters and affidavits. Under the commercial umbrella, folks have been led to believe that if a crime has been committed against them, that they only have two routes to take to see justice. They must either file a civil suit or they must file a criminal suit. And attorneys are not the only ones who will tell you this. Many laymen and laywomen have been indoctrinated with this ideology to believe that there are only two choices, when in fact there are other options available to the one who has been harmed. In this scenario, where there has been a crime committed against someone, that someone believes that they must do one of these two things. They must file a civil suit or they must file a criminal suit. This is entirely not true, for there are other options available to them. These other options exist outside of the umbrella of commercial law. Must is a word that commercial law uses to intimidate us so that we believe that we must do their bidding. It is simply a tactic and nothing more. Another example is where we receive a command in the mail from an agent or agency of the state, and the command reads, "You must pay this fine," or "You must appear in court." These commands and demands are intended for the all caps name, which is the person, the corporation. And if you identify as the person, aka the corporation, then you will need to do what the command or demand states. However, as we recognize ourselves as the living children of God, we also realize that we do not need to obey the lower commercial laws, which apply only to commercial entities. Commercial law does not apply to the living. That's powerful. Due to the fact that the admiralty law or commercial law jurisdiction bases its entire existence on assumption, presumption, tacit admission, and hearsay, it is imperative that we define the meanings of the words we use and that each word has only one meaning. It is crucial that you bring your list of definitions with you to the courtroom. Without your own terms defined, the judge will assume the meanings of each word. You can even give the judge a copy of your definitions so that there is no confusion on any of your meanings. Remember, it's your courtroom. Do not let them intimidate you. You are not a vessel, otherwise known as a shipping container. You are not an entity or a dead being. You are not a corpse, oration, aka corporation. You are not a person. You are not a thing. You are not an object. You are not a commodity. You are a living, breathing being, a flesh and blood man or woman created by God, not created by man and not created by a corporate, fictional government. You are not chattel property. You are not a legal fiction. You are a living soul. You were made in the image and likeness of God. Only with one's consent can these admiralty law corporations rule over any of us. If you know their game, then they cannot easily play it against you. Propaganda. The root of the origin of this word is pagan. To distribute truth or lies to a massive amount of people, think agenda. Again, they are propelling a narrative forward again and again and again. Informant, one who relays confidential information to someone, especially to the police or a court system. Ward. The definition of a ward is a wing of a hospital, a division of a prison, or a person, especially a child, who is who is dependent upon the care and support of an appointed guardian. A ward of the state is one who is owned by the state. The state is the guardian and not the lawful bloodline parents. Chattel, a slave, tangible, movable, or transferable property. Vessel. The definition of a vessel is a large ship or boat. It also refers to a container, especially one that is used to hold liquids. Here's a special note. They, the corporate players, are literally referring to your God-given body as a container that holds liquids. In the courts, the all caps name, which was issued to you at or around your time of being born, when your mom helped the wardens in the birthing ward to create the birth certificate. This all caps name is where they refer to you as a vessel. Remember, they are naming the ship. They are not naming you. Your parents, your blood-born or your flesh and blood true parents are the ones who named you. They, in essence, took your family name and created a trust that sounds like your name but is not you. Jane Doe, all caps, trust is different than Jane of the house and lineage of those known as Doe, or simply put, Jane Doe. Jane Doe in title caps, which is the traditional family spelling, where the first letter is capital and the rest are lowercase. So Jane Doe with the traditional family spelling is not the same as Jane Doe, all caps. Things that sound the same are not necessarily the same, and things that look similar are not necessarily the same. Certificate. Whoever holds rightful title of the certificate owns the contents described therein. In the case of the birth certificate, it is the state and federal government that now claims to own you. That is, until you rebut the claims that were made about you at the birth certificate's inception, and you correct your status on a court of record. Heavy stuff. Whew. Commerce. The exchange of goods or services, especially on a large scale. In one definition I looked up, it literally said intercourse, trade that the federal government is authorized to regulate. From Black's Law Dictionary, second edition, note that commerce relates to dealings with foreign nations, while trade is within a state or nation. Hence, all commerce occurs in a foreign jurisdiction. The Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction, the international law of the sea, used for commercial purposes. Citizen. Let's break down the word. City means municipal, and zen means servant. A citizen can be translated to mean municipal servant. When one is a servant, they are, in fact, a slave. I do not like to use the term citizen when referring to myself, because I do not want to be mistaken for a slave. Many American state nationals refer to themselves as state citizens, and it simply means that they are loyal to the state they were born in. Oath, a promise to do what you say you will do. Writ, it's spelled W-R-I-T, writ. The most commonly used definition is an order to an officer by a judge to seize one's property. It can also be described as a contract to do a certain action, provide a service, or fulfill a promise. So a writ can be an oath. Brit. Brit is writ, but they changed the B to a W. The B stands for blood. So the British are those who took a blood oath to the crown, hence the red coats. So Brit, to be British, is very different than to be English. So try to be careful with that use of word, because now we know a little bit more about what it actually means. It's loyal to the crown and not loyal to kingdom of heaven, godly principles. Okay, here we go. Ascitory oath. The word ascitory is used to create an emphasis on the strength of the oath, a stronger, more committed oath. This seems silly to me because if one takes an oath, they have already committed to keep their promise. An assertory oath means I really mean it. Apostille. Apostille, a more official, executive level notary, the highest level of certification. Mortgage. The word literally translated means death pledge. Legal versus lawful. It is crucial to define the difference between legal and lawful. The first original organic Constitution for the United States of America references genuine law. The present corporate U.S. courts use the word legal. The following is quoted from a dictionary of law from 1983. Lawful, in accordance with the law of the land, according to the law, permitted, sanctioned, or justified by law. Lawful properly implies a thing conformable to or enjoyed by law. Legal, a thing in the form or after the manner of law or binding by law. A writ or warrant issuing from any court under color of law is a legal process, however defective. And here's the definition of the word legal. Latin, legalis, pertaining to the understanding, the exposition, the administration, the science, and the practice of law as the legal profession, legal advice, legal blanks, newspaper, implied or imputed in law, opposed to actual lawful matters which are ethically enjoined in the law of the land, the law of the people, and are actual in nature, not implied. This is why whatever true law was upheld by the original organic first United States of America Constitution has no bearing or authority in the present day legal courts. I'm going to say that again. This is why whatever true law was upheld by the original organic first United States of America Constitution has no bearing or authority in the present day legal courts. And this is my own commentary here. This is because the lower courts are not constitutionally ordained. They are what is called Article 1 courts. They are not Article 3 courts. They are called de facto. And we here in America, we are de jure courts, We have courts, not courtrooms. We are de jure, they are de facto. Loosely translated, de facto means without fact. So there you have it. One is real and upholds the goodness of your rights being protected, and the other is fake, fiat, faux, foreign. It is impossible for anyone in authority today to access or even take cognizance of true law, since authority is the law of necessity. This is 12 U.S.C. 95. Legal matters administrate, conform to, and follow rules. They are equitable in nature and are implied or presumed, rather than actual or express. A legal process can be defective in law. This accords with the previous discussions of legal fictions and color of law. To be legal, a matter does not follow the law. Instead, it conforms to and follows the rules or form of law. This may help you to understand why the federal and state rules of civil and criminal procedure are cited in every court petition, so as to conform to legal requirements of the specific juristic persons named. In example, State of Georgia, all caps, or the U.S. federal government, in all caps, that rules the courts. Notice the use of all caps. It is worth mentioning again that there is no such thing as civil law or criminal law. There is only commercial law. Commercial law houses the illusion of civil versus criminal lawsuits. This illusion was a ploy that was created by the Admiralty law lawmakers to get the common man to believe that we have only two choices when it comes to the law. But as I mentioned earlier, we have other choices. We, as sovereign beings, do not have to participate in the world of commercial law. We can choose which jurisdiction we intend to operate from. As you have probably surmised by now, this is not a path for the weak or double-minded, for exiting the world of commerce is not an easy feat. It is my feeling that eventually, as more and more people catch on to the illusion, they will no longer be able to tolerate or participate in it. Questions versus I am statements. A servant asks permission. A free man uses I am statements. A free man does not answer questions. A free man commands his affairs, and it is he who asks questions if a question needs to be asked. Remember, you are not in their courts to argue. This is what they do and what they want you to do. This is what attorneys do. They argue. Nothing ever gets resolved when there is arguing going on. You are there to declare or state the facts of the matter. You are making a claim. You are correcting an error. You are pointing out mistakes and demanding a correction be made. You are there to call out their fraud of those that have committed fraud against you. In many cases, you will be calling out the judge on committing fraud against you. Tricks to be aware of. The judge will interrupt you. Do not expect them to do anything other than talk over you and attempt to silence you. This is one of their tactics. Stand strong and expect for the judge to be very rude. If they happen to be nice, well then lucky you, but it is not in their job description to be kind or patient. Next, they will try to ask you questions. Do not answer. You do not need to be rude, but you simply do not need to answer. Remember, they are, by definition, to be a people's servant government, and an employer does not answer to the employee. You are their superior. No matter how intimidating their setups appear. It's all smoke and mirrors, and it takes great courage to stand, especially when you're surrounded by sharks. The judge might try to intimidate you or hold you in contempt of court. In the law, both constitutional law and in admiralty law, you will often see the rule of three, where they will ask you the same question 3 times. This is a ploy to attempt to wear you down so that you think you have to acquiesce to their demands or suggestions. You, in turn, may need to state your claim 3 times to the judge, agent, or officer in order to have your wishes granted or considered. A strong recommendation: never play between jurisdictions. Unless you know constitutional law like the back of your hand, I do not recommend for anyone to ever think for 1 second that you can beat the system. I'm not saying that you can't, but I do not recommend tempting fate. 2 of my personal mentors are so brilliant at navigating through the admiralty law courts and maintaining their composure and still remain in absolute knowing of constitutional law that they have a 100% success rate in getting summary judgments and outcomes which they seek. However, for so many others, including myself, I chose to correct my status on a court of record by becoming an American state national. And because of this status correction, I can now easily refer to my state national status at any time. If I were ever, if I were to ever need to get out of being interrogated by a corrupt judge, agent, or officer, I could literally let them know that I'm a state national and exercise my right to the Fifth Amendment. And it's recommended here, don't plead the Fifth. We can exercise our right to utilize the Fifth Amendment. But if we plead, that's a whole other story, which leads me to please. If you plead guilty or not guilty in the Roman Admiralty law courts, you, in their eyes, are assumed to be guilty. Do not plead. Uh, State that you are a living man or woman and that you do not plead. This is yet another trick that they offer up to you in order to get you to incriminate yourself. These yahoos are really good at giving either or offers, otherwise known as ultimatums, to get you to believe that there are no other options available to you. If you accept their offer and you give them a plea, you just threw yourself under their Admiralty law bus. Oh my goodness. What a mess this is all that we're uncovering and learning. And I'm grateful for the exposure of it all, but please be careful, really, truly. If it comes to a matter of being right or choosing life, please choose life. And it's okay if you're still needing to use an attorney. There's a lot of people that are of the light and they don't even know that they accidentally aligned to a corporate regime that doesn't have their best interest at heart. So it doesn't mean that these people are bad or anything like that. We're all learning together, and I love you and I want you to stay safe and sound. The goal at the end of the day is to always go home in peace. May you have peace upon you. May peace be with you. And I love you and keep on learning alongside of me. Ciao for now.